Boy, has it been an exciting week, 2 weeks in the world of Disney Lorcana Finance. I would actually argue this is probably the second most volatile and exciting time that we've had in the world of Disney Lorcana Finance since Gen Con. So much has changed due to everything going on that there's just so much that we need to go over. Why are these things happening? Unless you're living under a rock, you've definitely seen prices drop like a stone. And the question, it's more of a question of why and where things are going to go from here. And have we reached a point where our world that we had from August to, I guess, through November and the beginning of December just isn't going to exist anymore in this game? And I actually think that's a good thing for players. I actually think it's a good thing for everybody involved. I'm not really here to give that opinion, but like I do think it's a good thing that's going on. I do think the game being cheaper and more accessible to more players means that we're going to have a stronger game in the long run. I just think that the days of $900 enchanteds and over $100 foil legendaries and all that, I think those days are over. So let's take a look. So what happened in December? Well, I don't mention it here, but the first thing that happened was you had PAX Unplugged. And I really don't think that was a huge factor. That's why I didn't have it on here. But you did have a large convention where you could buy a lot of product. So I do want to throw that out there. I don't think it's as big of a deal. So I didn't really include it, but it did happen. So I figured I should mention it at least. You did have the big box release on December 1st, and that was coupled actually with a reprint as well. And I think it's important to understand this. When you had the big box release on September 1st for the first chapter, you were still limited as to how much you actually were able to get because the printing was still limited. So you were still chasing around what store you were going to go to every hour, every day. Had to hit them when they got stocked up, etc. Because the amount that they were going to receive really just wasn't that much. The LGS release for Chapter One wasn't that much, etc. Now the LGS release of Rise of the Floodborn wasn't that much either, but we knew this big box release was going to be coinciding with a reprint. So the big box stores out there, your Walmarts, your Targets, I don't really know about the GameStops and things like that. I've only seen it at these larger big box stores along with Best Buy. They got a tremendous amount of product. And even without a limit as to how many you could buy, although a lot of Targets in my area at least did put a limit as to how much you can buy, you still had a situation where there was actually just so much supply that there's just no shortage of it. I don't know if there's extra in the back. I don't know if it's going to run out, but I can tell you right now that like you didn't have to be there as soon as the first minute opened, or else you weren't going to be able to get any stock. There's a ton of it that was there. There's probably a ton of it that's still there. Even when I see flippers put it online, they're not getting like they are losing money. Whether it's just tax money or whether it's just shipping money, they're losing money because they shouldn't have bought that much because there was no need for it because the supply is just so high. Now, I will say the Rise of the Floodborn stock does seem to be a little bit less overall compared to the Chapter One, and I think that bears out in the singles prices. We're going to go to it in a little bit, but I do think that the stores received more Chapter One, or it might just be a situation where players just don't need Chapter One. So I think the question that I'm here to answer today is: should you even buy boxes, and should you even buy singles? What I can tell you right now is it's definitely the time to buy. Because even though we had a gigantic reprint in December, and there's going to be additional reprints, there are going to be ebbs and flows as to where you're hitting that reprint. Right now, because we just had a reprint, it means that there's just because we just had the reprint, people that did buy probably mistakenly a lot of stock, thinking that there would be such a demand for it because of they still thought it was limited, whatever it was. Those prices are definitely down right now as people are trying to make money back. So as a player, I would definitely be buying right now. And even as a reseller, if you find people selling out of the game and you need to make them an offer, for example, as to what you're buying their collection for on the side, not really like through a website, chances are like, if you offer like X% of TCG low or something like that, it's going to be lower now than it will be in the future. So I highly recommend for everybody involved, you should be buying. So let's take a look at this December pricing, shall we? So the thing to understand again, as I've talked about before, I look at median and average prices of the card, then the number of them that you're going to open and figure out the box price. I really don't know of a better way of doing it. It basically says that if you're going to open 5 legendaries, I take the average and median legendary price, multiply that by 5. That's your legendary pricing, etc. There's not really a better way to do it. It just basically means this is what you'll probably open if given those prices. So let's take a look. So you can see on the graph above, the Chapter One box prices have plummeted. The box prices, you can get them now on TCG Player for probably like $160, I would say. I'm not really sure about the shipping. It might be like $5 or $10, but it's generally like $160. But honestly, if you just want to, that's if you want a sealed box. Like honestly, you can probably just go to your big box store and buy 24 packs at MSRP. And what that MSRP, for example, is obviously way less than any kind of profit margin that a reseller is trying to get. The MSRP of boxes is essentially, I know it's not sealed and like your rates won't be the same and all that, but it's $6 per pack, 24 packs, which is around $144 after tax in my area. It comes out to be like $155. So it's pretty much right in line with what you're able to get a box for on TCG Player after shipping. Now, if you look on the right-hand side above, that's the price of opening singles. So you can see that none of that is close to $155. And to be honest with you, if you're comparing it to the lows and like honestly, like the how do I say it? But like you're not going to make the low, you're probably not going to make the market. You're going to buy for something in between. So if you think about it logically, like the median prices of $77, $97. So if you were to spend what you would open in your box, you're probably going to get somewhere around $95 worth of value instead of buying singles. So if you ask me how I would spend my money, I would just buy $95 worth of singles. So on average, it's very difficult to make your money back buying singles right now. I mean, buying a box compared to just buying singles as it stands right now. Singles prices have plummeted on individual cards. Rapunzel right now is like $30, $33, $35, maybe if you're lucky. And Gantu, for example, is $1. And I'll get into this later, but there really is like no middle ground anymore. Like you're either pretty much an expensive card or you're worthless. There's really just no in between anymore. The other thing is resellers just have little reason to buy sealed product because they're just not, as you look at those numbers above, they're just not making the money back. So therefore, any smart reseller or in an area that had a lot of product to begin with, that they are already saturated without how much stock they actually have. So there's really no reason to buy sealed product, either to resell that product at higher prices because somebody can just go to the store and just buy it at MSRP, or to open it, as you can see above. And like I said, resellers might be able to make 20 to 25% above the prices above. But remember, they have to pay for fees and they have to pay for shipping. And I can tell you from personal experience that really eats into your profit margins if you don't take it into consideration. I could do a whole series on this, but when you sell a card for $5, you're not actually making close to $5. It's actually a lot less comparatively. And a smart reseller would take that in consideration. Obviously, if you're getting your cards quote for free as like prizes or something like that, it might be a different story. But most resellers, smart resellers, take that into consideration. Gold Star resellers take that in consideration. So keep that in mind as the prices that you're seeing. What about Rise of the Floodborn? Well, the story here is, I guess, a little bit better, which means it's a little bit worse for players who are looking to buy. The prices on these cards are on these boxes, for example, obviously have plummeted with the reprint, but the prices are much higher. You're looking. The big thing about Rise of the Floodborn, and I've said this in other videos, is there's just an extreme have or have nots. There are very few good cards at the higher rarities, which means honestly, a lot of the best cards are rare or uncommon, which means buying a box, you'll get most of what you need. At least as a one of, you obviously will not get like a playset or anything like that. So therefore, because when a reseller opens boxes, they're obviously going to get a higher percentage of rares versus super rares or legendaries. So it's just more efficient to buy singles of Rise of the Floodborn because of the lower rarity that's involved in the good cards that are out there. Again, the prices on boxes here and on the price on what you're going to get out of a box is much better here than it is on Chapter One. Again, if you look at that median low to median market, you're talking about probably being able to make back like 100 to maybe even $110 most with those. And if you open a good box, enchanted or not, you might actually be able to make up the box price. But I can tell you, if you've been following this channel for a long time, these prices of how much you're going to make when you open a box, compared to just buying singles versus buying a box, is extremely lower than where it was in the past. Obviously, I'm completely fine with box prices themselves being way down, but to see singles prices be this low, just means it's just way advantageous to buy singles, and less product is just going to be open in the market. So keep that in mind. Again, MSRP is still 144 and 155 with tax in my area. Rise of Floodborn, like I said, is the better investment. It's the latest set. You are seeing decks that are highly Rise of the Floodborn based instead of being a split between Chapter One and Rise of the Floodborn. Keep that in mind. I will say foils are actually maintaining a higher price since most players and collectors haven't actually finished their full foil sets or foil play sets of Rise of the Floodborn. And it seems like because prices are down overall, it's easy to foil out your deck. So they might as well spend, it's still less than they were spending in the beginning to even get cards at all. So a lot of players, I think, are actually looking into, okay, now might be time for me to start foiling out my deck. And I will say that the foils from Rise of the Floodborn are maintaining a decent price compared to their non-foil variants. Like I said above, rare prices are carrying the set. There's 6 rares above $5 and 16 rares above $1. That's rare to see in a card game that has this much printing. I know it seems odd given the prices from August through November, but to be honest with you, seeing rares in a 5 rarity game still hold prices above $5 and a bunch of them still hold value above $1 means that you don't actually have that much bulk. 16 rares, you're going to open a decent amount of them in your box, which means you're not going to be really that disappointed if you are opening sealed product. But again, I would still be purchasing singles to play with. Super rares wise, there are 3 above $9. So keep that in mind. Super rares and rares, again, are really where the money's at in Rise of the Floodborn. And you're opening to actually open more of them and better ones of them than you are on the legendaries. There are only 5 legendaries right now above $10 and only 1 that is over $15. That's pretty insane. Because what that means is like your excitement level of opening a legendary is actually probably equal to or less than opening some of the great super rares, which means you actually have a chance of opening multiples of a super rare in a box, for example, or multiples of a rare in a box that'll actually be more valuable than opening a legendary, which to me, it's just kind of insane and not something we've experienced in the past. But I will say basically what's happening again is it's a haves and have nots. The legendaries just aren't very good and aren't seeing play, whereas a lot of the super rares are seeing play and a lot of the rares especially are seeing play. I did want to take a moment to explain where a lot of my opinions are coming from. It is coming from an educated perspective. As you know, the best way to support the Forbidden Mountain and our YouTube channel, besides please hit that like and subscribe button if you're not already subscribed or you have not already liked the video and you like the information that I'm giving you here, is to head over to our TCG Player Store. There's a QR code up in the corner. You can click on that directly. That'll take you straight to our TCG Player Store. I think it's important to understand that we are not just simply on the TCG Player Marketplace, although we are there. We also have a store, which means we have a dedicated storefront to where you can buy cards directly. The prices are exactly the same. It just really helps us out if you buy from the store because it lets us know that we're efficient at getting, at you buying directly from us instead of, getting different options. I promise you that the prices are very competitive. They're no different than they would be if you buy them on the marketplace. It's just that buying it through the store just helps us out. So if you're able to do that, I really appreciate it. So what's happening? Well, the main thing I'll say is that cards are selling based on their strength. So I can tell you the card sale velocity, as I just showed you on the last slide, like the number of sales that we have is extremely high, which means many players and collectors are choosing to buy singles over buying sealed product. And I really believe that's the right way to go. The good cards are selling out, selling and maintaining value. When you look on the number of sales entries that there are for some of the best cards there's a lot of variety there, but they're maintaining their value. You don't see a lot of like, one person selling it for a quarter and one person selling it for $2. Like you don't see a lot of variety that's there. You see a lot of it kind of stacked up together. The other thing I'll mention is there's just a general lack nowadays of higher value commons and uncommons than there was in the past. I mean, you're not going to find $4 Cheshire Cats, $5 Flynn Riders, et cetera. And it had a Rise of the Floodborn, to be honest with you. The big issue with the commons and uncommons is the ones that see play are also in the starter decks. So they aren't going for premium prices. So keep that in mind. Again, it's still worth it to buy singles, even if you're just buying commons and uncommons, because they're just going to be way less than you opening them in sealed product. Now, does that mean you should go out and buy starter decks? Maybe if you need like Mim Snakes and uh, uh other. I don't think there's Strength of Raging Fire that's in there or anything like that, or Let the Storm Rage On or anything like that that's in there. But if you need the uncommons and commons that are present in the starters, they're probably worth it too, because the rares that are in the starters are some of the best ones that are in the set. So there is value in that as well. So as you see below, for example, it's really a haves or have nots. There are 3 super rares, for example, and I just use super rares from Rise of the Floodborn as an example. Arthur, Cinderella, and Lady Tremaine they're so, like, I couldn't make this greater than sign bigger. They are so much more valuable than the other ones. It's just not even funny. Like you're talking about even Tremaine being the least one at like $9 to $10, whereas like the ones on the right are less than $1. I mean, you could get 10 to 20 of them for the same price as one card on the left. So it really has become a haves or have nots. And that's the way I expect it going forward, to be honest with you. The way I see it now, and I put the sad beast on there for that he just represents the way the economy is going right now. He's just sad face, but it's great for the players, in my opinion. So where are we at? Where are we going to be? Well, to me, the reselling of sealed product is completely over. You can readily buy sealed product at MSRP. So any premium that you thought you were going to get at as a reseller is over. Anyone that hoarded boxes, mistake. And we knew this. We knew this was going to happen. So I hope anyone that was doing that, for your sake, that you sold it, because right now it's over. In my opinion, bulk prices, so your commons, your uncommons, your bulk rares, I think those prices will eventually get more in line with other TCGs. I'm not sure that we're going to get down to like, $8 per thousand or anything like that, but I do believe that the days of like paying 10 to 15 cents per card on any Lorcana card that you can get, they're over as well. So if you do have a collection that you're looking to move, and you're like, oh, well, I have all these cards, every card has value or whatever. The bulk really doesn't have much value anymore, because it's actually going to cost a reseller more to ship than it is to actually use the cards. Resellers, in my opinion, and this I can tell you from personal experience, again, I can do a whole series of videos on this if you really want to know how we run our business. I'm fully willing to share it. It's not that big of a deal. I think for resellers, it's smarter to buy collections that are getting out of the game than it is to continue to buy sealed product. And I think what that's going to do is just leave more sealed product on the shelves, to be honest with you. If resellers don't need to buy the product to move, open and move, not move as a flip, you're just going to see more sealed product that stays on the shelves. I know it's way too early. I was going to do a little series on Into the Inklands and how I see certain single cards changing, but I think we're way too early for that, based on the small amount of news that's out there. But in my opinion, Ravensburger has learned from its early mistakes, which means Into the Inklands is likely to be overprinted compared to the demand for sealed product that's going to be there come time. So I think Into the Inklands is going to have no problems being printed, which means your LGS release 2 weeks before your big box release, they're probably going to be just as big as one another, which means we reached that equilibrium point, which every card game gets to, where it's like, okay, set comes out. What am I going to do? Am I going to buy my boxes? Obviously day one, there's no other product to be had. So somebody has to buy the boxes. But in my opinion, I don't even know that day one, you're going to need to buy boxes, because you're just going to have singles immediately available and the price on them just isn't going to be high. So there's no reason to like line up, get there at 5 o'clock in the morning to your LGS, etc. I just think there's going to be more of it that's out there, and the demand simply isn't going to be as high. And I do think we're going to reach a point where singles prices will now ebb and flow depending on what happens in tournaments. For example, you've seen already with Lies of Floodborn cards like Hiram, cards like Sleepy's Flute that come out of nowhere. That's really to me where the market's going to go. Keep an eye on what's going on in the tournament reports. We do a meta report here every single week. Keep an eye on the new cards that you're seeing, especially from the higher rarities that might show up in these decks. Try different strategies, see what happens there. But I really believe that the tournament strategy and the OP announcement that's going to be coming in January is going to drive prices more than supply and demand have in the past. So it's not simply going to be about like every rare is worth X amount of dollars. It's only going to be there's going to be a widening gap between cards that see play and cards that don't, and that gap is going to continue to get wider and wider. And at the higher rarities, it's going to matter even more. Honestly, I believe that this is. I believe Disney Lorcana has now reached an equilibrium with its finances. We're at a point now where buying singles is definitely the way to go. I mean, it pretty much always was the way to go, but there was an argument to be made that like, oh, I get foils, oh, I have a chance of enchanteds, like etc. I just think those days are over. I think as a player, you should be smart and be buying singles if you don't already own them, even for commons and uncommons. You could honestly get an entire collection of everything you need. If you're smart about it for a lot cheaper than you would be buying sealed product. If you like cracking packs, that's up to you, but don't buy a bunch of packs and crack them and expect to make your money, even to expect to break even compared to what you would spend buying singles. Like money is money. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just telling you the most efficient way to use it. I would be buying singles and make a concerted effort as to like, maybe you don't need that common. Like, yeah, it might only be 10 cents, but if you don't need four of them, you're still saving 40 cents that you could use to buy a bad rare, to be honest with you. So if you go out there and you really study what you actually want to buy all at one time, buy it from a trusted seller, chances are like, your shipping will be free, etc., and you'll get it all in good condition, etc. So, there's a good chance that like you're just going to save a ton of money compared to buying sealed product, and let players that like to buy product buy the sealed product. There's a ton of it out there. There's a ton of it in your big box stores. There's going to be more of it coming soon. Again, we've reached equilibrium with the game. It doesn't mean that like it doesn't mean it's not exciting. It doesn't mean it's not fun. It just means that there's no more supply shortage, which is great for everybody involved. There's more of an idea of what you're actually going to get for cards and what your cards are actually worth without having to worry about those ebbs and flows. So I hope you enjoyed the December meta report. I know it's been a tumultuous time. If I don't see you in the next couple weeks, enjoy your holiday season, and I'll see you next time with the Forbidden Mountain.